name's Rory Rotzoll, and I'm running for alderman for Ward 12. Well, mostly it's because, well, first of all, because there was an opportunity, obviously, and also because where I lived before in Shepherd, I noticed a lot of promises that the city was making that they weren't fulfilling, that they weren't discussing, that they weren't even talking about, and that's because the city annexed Shepherd in 2007, took it over by law in 2008. Then it took another year for the city to give me an address when I lived there, and then they gave me garbage collection, and then they took it away 3 weeks later. So it was sort of it was born out of a general frustration. Plus, you know, the things that you see in the news, the snow removal issues that we have, and then seeing that the roads people will come out and say that, well, the city's had, they've blown the budget for the snow removal 14 out of the last 19 years. And if that were any other company, that person who was responsible for the budget would certainly have their job in jeopardy, if not have no more job. But we just keep trucking along like everything's fine. So it was born out of the frustration first, and then you know, just seeing that I think I could make a difference. For the city, aldermen have a specific role in city council. They have to take care of the folks in their ward, their constituents, but they also do play a role. They get to be deputy mayor, and they also get to present legislation to council that gets voted on. And I think one of the main things that you do for the city that we need to do is we need to get our spending and our costs under control. It seems like every year they debate massive tax increases, massive user fee increases, and we don't seem, as Calgarians, we don't seem to see any of the actual benefits from those. We certainly see the construction on the roads every year, but that's a maintenance issue. It's not a, I mean, that should be part of your budget every year. We're seeing a little bit of the benefits in the police force for sure, but other than that, it seems like it's status quo for the city, and yet we continue to pay more, and our population continues to grow. So in theory, our budget money and our tax money should also continue to grow, and yet we're not really seeing anything. And then every year when they debate the budget, it ends up being a difficult process to get it down to where inflation is, and on occasion they don't seem to be able to do it. And so that's one of the major issues for the city. The other one for the city would be to sort of go through certain departments and obviously do a little culling, find people that, I mean, there are some very obvious redundancies in certain, because the city operates with the council sort of as a board of directors, sort of per se, and then the corporate side of the city takes care of certain things. And when you see something in the news like where the auditor finds potential for fraud and then discovers there's no fraud, and then the city fires the auditor, it seemed to me that maybe somebody should be overseeing that office, so that there isn't an office operating in city council that isn't adequately staffed, isn't competent to do the job. So there should be somebody controlling that. And I think that I think if you found somebody to control that, there would certainly be other opportunities for culling that I believe they would find. Those are some of the main issues for the city, I mean, considering spending. And then when you go to my ward, which is, you know, very far south and east, yeah, you come up with transportation issues. The city a number of years ago made it part of their mandate to get people out of their cars as often as possible. That's why we build the bike paths. That's why we build the pedestrian sidewalks. That's why we have the crosswalks. And then somewhere in probably the beginning of the boom, we seem to have abandoned that. We've built neighborhoods that are, you know, quite far away from where most folks work, and we have no real way of getting those people where they need to be without them jumping in their cars. And if everyone in these neighborhoods jumps in their cars and takes the one or two roads that will get them where they need to be, we end up with our traffic congestion issues. Speaking of the traffic congestion issues, when I lived in Shepherd, one of the main things that the city kept threatening us with was the ring road. Now they've completed the north and the northwest and east portions of the ring road, and they've started construction on the southeast portion of the ring road, and they may or may not get to the construction portion of the southwest, depending on what happens with the Sutina. And it all sounds like it's great and it's moving along really well, but if people understood that the ring road was a concept that came out in the 60s. The land for the ring road was purchased in the 90s, and we're now coming into 2010 with the ring road proposed to be done in 2015, and to me that's a very inefficient process, going essentially 50 years to building a road, and now when we're in 2010, a road is not necessarily the best option for transportation. In the 60s for sure, in the 2000s when we're 1 million people plus, we should already be beyond just building a big road around the city. I've been a realtor in Calgary since 2003. I've lived in this city. I was born in Calgary. I lived in Chestermere for a little portion of time, but I was born in Calgary. I lived in this city my whole life. I'm well aware of what the city could be. I've also lived in a couple cities outside. I lived in South Korea for a couple of years, and I'm well aware of what the city reputation is internationally, and it's not what Calgarians believe it should be. I'm also well aware of what other cities are doing, and I've seen how certain things work, and I've seen how they could work here. I don't have any of the city council baggage. I just have, I have some business sense and some common sense, and I think we need to bring some business sense and some common sense back to city council.